All right, welcome to Golf Talk Live's Season 14. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. We're going global today, from the soulful art of the perfect strike to a deep dive into the world's most coveted irons. But first, let's find your rhythm. We're heading straight to the Coach's Corner. Let me introduce tonight's panelists. First up is a seasoned PGA golf instructor and partner of TGM Golf and the R3 approach, Clint Wright. His philosophy strips away the paralysis by analysis that plagues many amateurs, focusing instead on natural athletic movement and rhythm to produce consistent results. Also on the panel tonight is Jamie Leno-Zimron. She's an LPGA professional and a 6th degree black belt in Aikido. She is the pioneer of Ki golf, known as the Golf Sensei. She blends martial arts internal power with professional golf instruction. Jamie specializes in teaching golfers how to use body alignment, focused energy, and the zone to play more powerful and mindfully golf. Welcome, guys, to the Coach's Corner panel.
Good to be here, Clint.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
All right, appreciate it. So what I've done is I've taken a little bit of each of your backgrounds, if you will, and kind of what you specialize in. And I framed the questions in such a way that each question that applies to the individual is going to be sort of tailored to what you guys are known for. So I'm going to start off as I introduced you. Clint, I'm going to talk about this. And I wanted if you could maybe walk us through a little bit of the R3 framework. So specifically, how does it help a player differentiate between, let's say, a fundamental mechanical imperative and a personal style preference? So talk us through the R3 framework and specifically how it differentiates between the mechanics of swing and maybe a personal style.
Well, the R3 evolves around what we have as a 16-piece puzzle that breaks down mechanical, body, the mental capacity, and then the mindfulness of being able to take all that to the golf course. That's where we start. And what we try to do is to work a player through each playing. We want to go and look at it as a protocol. Just like we want to know what you're doing, what the problem is, try to diagnose the problem. But most importantly, we don't want to make a mistake on what the problem may be. So what we try to do is walk a player through what's the golf club doing? What's the tool doing first? Is it in the right places? Is it online? Is the angle being set? Are we getting it back down the path? If that's the case, then we can go on past that and not get weighted down in what the club head's doing. We know it's okay. Then we'd immediately move over as well as your body movement supporting that.
Right.
And if we've got those two things worked out, then we have to go over and look. Obviously, the player is striking the ball well. If they're doing those two things well, then what we have to do is begin to analyze how they're beginning to try to use that on the golf course. For years when I was coaching, mom and dad would want to know what I thought about their kid. And I said, well, he's a pretty good hitter, but we don't know how good a player he is. So we want to move over into teaching a person how to play as quickly as we can. That strips away all the mistakes and all the stuff that they see and read about, I've got to have the club here, I got to have the club there. As long as the club face and the path of the club and the angle is being maintained and you're supporting that, then we want to focus on how you're trying to use it, not necessarily you trying to have something better to use. There always comes a point to where it's good enough. So now how are you going to use it? And that way we kind of feel like you use the word, we strip away a little bit of the mystery about it and said, look, we're going to show you that what you're doing is fundamentally sound. So let's go and talk about how you're going to use this on the course. And, we always have a philosophy, a point that if you're not aware of something, you can't repeat it. So we want you to become aware that your movement, your swing is good. You can repeat it because you're aware of it. Now let's go and see how you're going to work that out and become useful on the golf course with what you know how to do.
Well said. That's great. Thank you for explaining that. And I want to, as I said, I want to give each of you really an opportunity because you have very unique specialties in the golf business that obviously incorporate a lot of similarities, but they're also different. And this brings me to yours, Jamie, and sort of that Aikido connection, if you will. So as I mentioned in the opening bio, you're a 6th degree Aikido black belt and also an LPGA pro. You've bridged two very different worlds, if you will. And I want you to talk about how you sort of first discovered the art of, as I call it, the art of peace, is really what held the secret to more powerful, consistent golf swing. So I want you to talk about how your martial arts experience, how you've sort of married the two between your traditional golf instruction.
Thank you for the question. And my book is going to be out within a couple months. It has a lot more of this information background in it. But I actually started playing golf when I was 7 in Wisconsin, and I was basically kind of a natural. It was before there was a lot of golf instruction and that sort of thing. Although we did have junior tournaments, and I was ranked in the top 10 nationally with some future LPGA stars and all. But I went to school at Stanford, and that's where I started practicing Aikido. In the 70s, Aikido was kind of coming into the States from Japan. And a friend of mine told me about it. I said, this is too good to be true. Well, it turns out that Aikido gave me a generic understanding of what I sort of naturally knew. So, for example, we would say, keep your head down. Well, that's about keep a center, keep a steady focus, and something you can rotate around. Bend your knees. Well, that was like having a solid base. I don't let my hips get ahead of my hands. This was connection and a lot of different things. Anyways, I opened my own martial arts school when I was 25 in San Francisco. And I was teaching sword work, how to hold a sword. And I said, well, you see, it's a lot like golf. And I'd always had a tip of the tongue feeling on my whole body that I already sort of got Aikido, and it turns out it was from golf. So you hold a sword, wooden sword or samurai sword like this. The only difference is putting the hands together in golf. But the sense of extending or flowing energy down the sword blade or the shaft of the club, we have to get our energy out to the tip of the sword in martial arts. Well, that's the club face, and make contact there. So they were, just kind of like do, 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 do. And then I returned to golf and joined the LPGA as a teaching professional. I'm also a psychologist, so I've been very much in the mind-body field. And it's not kind of just all between the ears. Jack Nicklaus, in fact, said, golf is played between the arches of your feet. And I am very big on our footwork, our base, our lower body in golf. Most instructors don't talk a lot about that. They're more into shoulder turn and straight left arm and all this stuff. And it turns out all athletic motion really starts from the feet and ground force and feet up through the knees and hips, and then connected with the shoulders and upper body movement. And then there's breath, relaxation, whew, let it go, from a stable I call it LPGA, loving your posture, grip, and alignment. This should all be connected, harmonious, set up for success, moving in a way that's connected. It does come out quite natural, but there are what I call mechanics to the magic. It's magic. When you hit a golf ball, all those things happens, but there's mechanics. And when you follow those natural laws and the ways the body and mind work together, energy works, it turns out that movement is very fluid, powerful, sort of that flow zone thing. And but you have this, Clint was talking about, you're aware, you know what you're doing. It didn't just sort of like, willy-nilly happen and you can't repeat it. So it's kind of a blend. I always say the physical, the metaphysical in a sense. But this whole notion, I'll say one more thing that's, I think, very important for martial arts. It's about centering. And, golf is such a centered sport. There we are, boom, right in front of us. And we need to make what we call centered contact on the ball. That's when you hit the sweet spot in the club, right?
Right.
So the thing is, golfers make centered contact on a random basis. They never know when. Not two here, two that. Oh. And the one that keeps you coming back. Oh, that was great. So my theory is if we could up our percentage from random to a consistent 30, 40, 50, 60, you won't get 100%, but you get a lot higher than a baseball player, for example. We can get to 70, 80% centered contact. When we miss the center, it won't be so bad. We won't be in the woods, maybe we'll be in the rough or, that sort of thing. So centered, if I can stay centered as opposed to lift and sway and peak and all these things that break that centeredness, if I'm centered, I move in a properly sequenced, lower to upper body centered way, I'm going to start making centered contact. The club will make its centered orbit the way, the earth goes around the sun because the sun is solid in the middle. We need to be that center. So that's another really, really big thing from martial arts that I bring into golf is the sense of centeredness with a solid structure and ground, and then a relaxed flow and breath through the ball.
Well said. And, this is why I wanted you to really have an opportunity for both of you to talk about, again, what you each sort of bring to the table to instruction, because, just like no two players are exactly alike, no two instructors are exactly like, everybody has a little bit different mixture, if you will. And what I've often liked about Jamie, for instance, is the fact that you have incorporated another component outside of what you would typically see in golf. But there's really a lot of truth to what you're doing already in golf. People just don't realize it. So you're sort of bringing it to the forefront. So you actually jumped a little bit ahead, because I was going to ask you next about the centered way. So I'll let you talk about that in a moment when I get back from Clint, and then I have something else for you as well. So Clint, I'm coming back to you, and I want you to talk about the power component. And this is, many golfers, again, are always chasing speed by hitting with their hands. And in your system that you talk about with the R3 approach, is how do you teach the relationship between pressure, pivot, and pull to create efficient power rather than sort of a forced effort? So talk a little bit again, because we see this, people just trying to power hit this ball. And really that's, as Jamie was just talking about with what she has said, that's really not what's necessarily the case. So give us some scoop here.
Well, I think that I could just repeat what Jamie said about from the ground up. I've never played, nor have any one of y'all played a sport that didn't start from the ground up. The footwork is important. But one of the things that we see when we talk about is that I'll take a student and take a 7-iron and just make as very relaxed and as long a swing as I can make to make a point with them. Because the ball, I'll do that, is going to go about 100 yards. Okay. Just by letting it flop down on the ball and the ball responds. And I ask them where the 100 yards come from. And they always want to say, well, you pull the club, you push the club, you did this and that. And I said, no, is if we took the ball over and dropped it on the cart path, what's it going to do? It's going to bounce. Well, where'd the bounce come from? The same place the 100 yards came from. It's built into the ball. It's there for you. So how do we realize that and just simply to create what Jamie just said, a center contact. If I can make the power in the middle of that golf club is what you're looking for. And if you can extend your body and stretch it, I understand her background in martial arts. I like the Tai Chi ideas. Let's get our body moving. But then I ask them, I hit a 7-iron 150 yards. So how much do I have to put in? And they never have an answer. All I've got to do is swing for 50 yards, not the whole 150. So I try to get my students to feel like I'm only hitting a 50-yard shot or a 60-yard shot. That's what I want your body to feel like. So that means it's going to be much more relaxed. Tension kills speed. Speed equals distance. And so if I can keep them breathing, as Jamie mentioned, we got to have some, relaxed breathing. And if I can get them to stay relaxed or what they consider to be, then I can help them build more speed, which gives them more distance, regardless of their physical really capabilities of getting a bigger turn, creating some better ground force and working, down and through the ball instead of up and away from it. And to try to get them to understand we can use some of this natural forces around us if we'll stay out of its way, stay centered, stay balanced, keep your body moving. Jackie Burke always believed that the golf swing was two parts. You had to finish your backswing to have a downswing. So we can't get in a hurry is his point. Finish, get good turn, get some leverage into the lower half, and then let that release. The word release doesn't necessarily mean releasing the club with your hands. In my opinion, it's releasing your backswing. Release everything. And if you do that and stay, relatively loose through it, that part of the game is not to fling the club down the fairway. So you're going to hold on to it. So there's going to be a natural tension increase to hold the club. But if you will try to understand that power comes from center hit and speed, then we got a chance of developing a better touch and feel that should give them more distance and as a byproduct of that.
Well said. I like how you interwove what Jamie talked about into your answer as well. So obviously that's a shout out to you, Jamie. Right. It's all, it's all, exactly. And she's exactly right in what she said as well. And I think this is what, so often I can guarantee we've all at some point, many times, seen this up at the practice range where people are just flying out of their shoes. They're just trying to muscle the ball out there and it's not going anywhere. Or if it does get some power behind it, it's all over the place because they're so out of sync. Their timing, their rhythm, everything is out of sync. So, and the club face is pointing, every which way but loose. And what ultimately ends up happening is they might be hitting it a good distance, but it's nowhere near the target. or anywhere near going towards the target. So, there's a balance in everything. Jamie, I want to get you to unpack just a little bit the Ki mastery, if you will, and your approach really emphasizes, and I've kind of thrown these little analogies in here, is moving similar to like a beam of light. And I want you to talk a little bit about how does a focus on energy flow and rhythm help a golfer bypass that paralysis by analysis. I know Clint talked a little bit about it as well, but that often comes from traditional position-based instruction, as you talked about earlier, where, let's get this into slot A and into slot B and so forth. And sometimes when we get too mechanical in it, but through your Ki centered way, is you've really tap into a person's energy flow and rhythm. So talk a little bit about that, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, exactly. And, my book took a little extra time to write because I really had to delve into conveying what is ki, what is energy, what is harmony, unity, what is, all of these things. So, and then there's a really big chapter, the case study of Ki golf and the application of all this to golf. Because it applies in every sport. It's universal, applies in leadership. It just applies in anything. Well, let me say this. My first question always to golfers is, what makes your golf ball go? And, they'll say, well, I hit it and angles and the club head, whatever, all these different things. It's like, and what really makes your golf ball go is you.
Right.
So then the next question is, who are you? And I was like, we're deep fast, right? The age-old question, who am I? But on a very functional, practical level, it's like I got an answer. You are life energy in a body, right? We get bored, we breathe, we move, we die, we lose the body, the life energy goes out of the body. That thing that leaves, and you could call it spirit, soul, you could just call it life energy, whatever you want to call it, but it's not there anymore. So it's this life energy, and it works. This is universal all over the planet, doesn't matter sex, age, size, etc. Works through our body, mind, emotions, spirit. Yeah. Those are our faculties, and they need to work in harmony. I can't have my mind saying one thing and my emotions are saying the next thing, and my body's like doesn't know what to do, and my spirits are in the dumps. I mean, it just doesn't work like that. So this is the self-mastery. He or she who can master their own faculties and their energy more, knows how it works through the body, is going to do better. It turns out it works from the lower to the upper body. Think about a quarterback throwing, or a baseball hitter, or a tennis player, a basketball player goes down, and lower body, and then nice relaxed arms and hands. So this is just kind of the way it works. And when we can apply that to golf, we stop killing the ball. And the killing it thing is because we haven't really been taught about the true sources of our power, the centered sequential thing, the breath, relaxed power. And you're just standing there stationary, not even running around. And you're like, what do I do? Right? And so we kill it with our upper body. I was just at the LPGA Founders Cup. It was in the Bay Area last week, and I was there. And something really interesting is that Louise Suggs, one of the 13 founders of the LPGA, and she was a small person physically. She wrote a classic book, Par Golf for Women, and it just applies to everybody, in 1953. Well, Ben Hogan wrote the foreword and said, her swing was so smooth, so solidly, roundly joined together. No one was longer off the tee or more down the middle. She was bound to be a winner. So this was from Ben Hogan. And she said, there should be no thought of trying to murder the ball when you get back to it.
Right.
Yeah. And so, this is age-old stuff. This isn't, it's not my discovery. It's not, new age. This is just kind of the way it is. It's been this way for a long time. And every great athlete, as well as a musician for that matter, anybody, a singer, follows these laws of energy and how to be in charge of their own energy and use it in the best ways possible, their mental, physical, emotional energy, to their spirit, where they're going. I will say one more thing, and that is about, because we've mentioned distance and direction.
Yep.
And those things come when you have balance, when you have centeredness, when you have a foundation. You're not all over the place. And I remember A friend of mine, Dee Dee Lasker, she played on the tour. She's been in the golf business a long time. She spoke one day to our girl golfers, and she said, I knew I was going to be a golf pro when I was 4 years old because of my name, Dee Dee. D
Oh,
for distance and D for direction. So I always love that, you know. It's like how often you're like, oh, you're like pin high and you're in the bunker, right? Or you're like way over the pin, you're, you know, either 10, 20 yards short or long. It's like you need them both. And
right.
that is a function that it's produced in a consistent way when we are consistently grounded, centered, moving in sequence and relaxed, like a beam of light focused on line. Yeah. And moving around spiraling around a stable center.
Yeah, well said. You know, it reminds me too, and my good friend LPJ professional Cindy Miller, who I know you both know, we've joked about this, but really talked about people bringing their baggage into their game. And I always equated it with, running through the airport, you're dragging your bags behind you and you're lugging these bags. Well, that's what happens with a lot of golfers is they bring every past bad round, every bad shot with them, and they lose that sort of centered way, that connection, again, with their spirit and their body, and they're thinking about too many things. They're thinking about swing thoughts, and they've got so much going on upstairs that they're not really focused on the task at hand. And a lot of times, if they just learn to get out of their own way, they would be a much better player and quit focusing on the mechanics. And so that kind of reminds me what you were talking about. I was thinking about that as you were speaking, and I thought how really, so many people spend so much of their time in this game trying to perfect something that comes really naturally to all of us. We can all swing. We can swing a stick. We can swing a baseball bat. All this these different analogies that we've used over the years. But what ends up happening is people put too much thought into it and start decompressing or deconstructing the golf swing so much that by the time they're said and done, they've got 20 swing thoughts when they stand up in front of the ball, and they're no longer centered. They're no longer thinking, I'm just going to go up there, have fun. Let's enjoy the round. They're now thinking about too many other things, and they get too much in their way. So, but Clint, I want to come back to you. I've just got a few more moments here each. And this one here, this is sort of a practical example of what you've been talking about. And I thought maybe you could share a story, if you will, perhaps of a student. You don't necessarily have to give names or anything, obviously, who was completely lost. Again, what I was just talking about, their technical swing thoughts and how that system that the R3 that you've helped develop, how they sort of were able to give them more clear, repeatable roadmap. So once they've been applied to your system, how were they able to then regroup and become a better player as a result of just sort of going out there and, as Jamie said, sort of chaotic?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And before I get into that, I'll add one thing about Jackie Burke Jr. in his book called Play Golf the Natural Way, written 1952 or 3. His point was that people don't play golf, they attack golf. And that's kind of what you're describing. They attack it. They go out there, got to do this and that instead of playing golf. So with that in mind, we use the puzzle, and it's a protocol we try to go through, as we spoke about earlier. We will analyze, or at least look at every aspect of a golf swing, what the club is doing, what the body's doing. And what we then try to do with video and just analysis of it is says, this is okay. You don't have to think about what the club is doing. Whatever learning and practice and work you've been doing is working. It's okay. So we're going to move past on to that, and let's figure out what the body's doing. Is it supporting that? And try to prove to our students, stop looking for something better in this area of your golf swing. It's okay. We can then go on to the next place. And if that's okay, we'll go on over to how are your tactical side? Are you got your yardages right? Or how are you beginning to play? So if you look at it in our protocol, we want to stop people attacking golf. We want them to learn to get over what we call crossing the bridge from technical to playing. And we try to just prove to them, this is what you're doing. It's perfectly fine and good. It's fundamentally sound. And that's all you have to achieve in what you're doing with the club and what you're doing with your body. Be fundamentally sound. And that has a lot of factors like Jamie's talking about. Are you centered? Are you developing any kind of torque in your swing? Those things that we can prove to them that you have to buy into this, okay. Because before you're ever going to get a person to go across that bridge, they have to believe that they're doing it okay. You can't, you have to convince them of it, but they still have to buy into it. That
Mhm.
frees them up to go across the bridge over here to tactical into the playing aspect of what we're dealing with. The mental, if you want to call it mental, I like to call it more emotional. We all know what we're doing. We know who we are. We know where we're at. It's all about the nerves, the want to, the desire to play well,
Mhm.
to be able to control those emotions on the golf course. And one of the things that we always, try to avoid, and we see it every day, is kind of a joke around where we play. We'll walk into the shop and say, well, what's the thought of the day? What's the method of the day? Because that's what everybody's looking for. What am I going to try today that was better than it was yesterday? Well, there may not be a better way because you're fundamentally sound now. So stop looking. Start trying to develop those skills to use what you have. And that's not in the physical movement. That's in the emotional, tactical side of the game, to where when you step out on the first tee, your awareness, your mindfulness of what you're going to try to do is not a tactical move. It's an emotional, stable, relaxed, powerful movement from away from the ball and back through the ball. And that's never going to come when you step up on the first tee and try to keep your left arm straight and your head down. It's not going to come from that. It's going to come from the person. We try to convince them that you're doing that fine. So let's focus on something else, because that's where you're going to see improvement, is in the tactical, the emotional control, and being able to take what you know and apply it during the game. It's a game. There's nothing more than that. When you're on the practice tee, that's not a game. But when you go to the first tee, we're playing a game. So you have to enjoy the game. Don't attack it, play it.
Yeah, well said. Some great points, Clint. Thank you for that. Jamie, finally for you, I want to talk about sort of the integrative vision, if you will. You've worked with everyone from corporate leaders to tour players. What is the most common missing link, if you will, that you see that prevents even the most physically gifted athletes from reaching their peak performance on the course? So what is it specifically? What's that one thing that they're really missing that you've discovered working with high caliber executives and also professional players that helps? And they could be some of the best. I mean, we've seen some athletes from all different sports get out there. I mean, I hate to throw them under the bus, but Charles Barkley, could play at times, and then there was a moment there where it was ugly. So even some of the most gifted athletes out there don't always doesn't always translate to the golf course. So what's the missing link that prevents even some of the most athletic players just not do their best on the golf course?
Kind of what we've been talking about, which is being too much in their heads.
Mhm.
And I mean that both mentally and physically.
Yep.
So what I mean is, most of us are kind of more in our heads. There's a big section I always talk about, the body as a bad rap and a bad rep, right? It's like, no good. And we very much value the mind and education, which we think of as only head brain. We're even more in our heads because we're on our devices and our computers, and we're all in this head information thing. We're not very present in our bodies, and most people don't even like their bodies. They hurt, they aren't the right weight, the right size, the right whatever. And they're not that conversant with their body. So when we talk about mind-body connection, we're talking about the neurophysiological connection. I can think and tend something, and I can make my body do it. Or my pro can say, drop your elbow in your side, and I know where my elbow is and where my side is, or push from my back instep to start my forward movement, to get my hips turning and to push from ground force. Well, where is my right instep? I don't know. It's kind of like the blind spot in my mirror. So we need to build the mind-body connection more than it is. And people need to be really present in their body more than in their head. So we get the analysis by paralysis. That means I'm thinking too much and I'm trying to piece together, do this, do that, do that, do that, put this tweak in, that tweak in. It's just like, the whole really is greater than the sum of its parts. So we need those parts, but we have to stay in the whole. And this sense of being really present in your body, feeling your lower belly, what we call your center, your hara, having that be connected to your legs and feet, really being able to relax and feel the tension in the body. What does relaxed feel like? But relaxed, alive, relaxed, timing, sequence. So being in command of our body parts, being in our bodies, and also being able to manage all the things that happen out there on the golf course. To manage the mental game, it's not just a matter of thinking positively or trying to do something in your head. It's very difficult to just do mental tricks and practices. We can regulate and improve our thinking the minute we move from our sympathetic, triggered, upset, emotionally upset, or whatever, sympathetic nervous system into our calm, equilibrium, parasympathetic. That's part of centering. That's part of being grounded. That's part of breathing and relaxing. And when we're there, it turns out we have a much clearer mind. Mental game improves. Emotionally, we're not stuck on upset or anger or fear, anxiety. We're in a whole different place. That's the more master place, more the black belt golfer, if you will, whatever you want to call it. But this is where it's about our nervous system, and the nervous system is like below the head, and there's connection. So we want to be in those connections, but that's where I think people lose it. They worry, they have a bad memory, they get pissed off and upset. They're not in the present. They're upset about what they did. They're scared about the 17th hole. That's a tough one, and I'm only on the 6th hole. But I just bogeyed the 5th, so now I got to worry about the 17th. I mean, it's like that. We need to have these skills to be physically and sort of mentally, physically present in our bodies, and to move our bodies, have the awareness, neuromuscular awareness, to move our bodies well, and then to manage our nervous system so that we're in that regulated, centered parasympathetic nervous system, not the triggered this kind of stuff. So I think those are the two things. And the one other thing I would say is, to me, the biggest difference between really good players and professionals compared to sort of whatever other players is balance.
Yeah.
You never see a pro like falling or lurching or lifting. I mean, it's a matter of a little bit to have the club face not right, their shots go off, but they're always in a rhythm and in a balance.
Yep.
And that's the thing. And that gives repeatability, it gives consistency, it gives confidence, all those things. So I think balance. And balance requires some musculature to have physical balance and to have the regulated balance. So I think those are the two biggest things.
Yeah, well said. And they obviously tend to swing within themselves. We talked about earlier with Clint about trying to really force that power. And really, a lot of the top professionals over the decades have always said it should be effortless power. And really, they're learning how to use the body correctly to be able to generate that. And there's some that have been able to get away with, but most of the ones that really tried to force the power over the years, and I'm talking about professionals, ended up with a lot of back injuries and a lot of other injuries because they were trying to muscle the ball. Right.
So you're reminding me, my signature corporate leadership program is called Stress Less, Prosper More. And the subtitle is Effortless Power for Unprecedented Success. And I mean, it's just like, sign me up. I want to stress less. I want to prosper more, unprecedented success. And I don't have to try so hard and be so exhausted and wasted and alienate everybody. Wow. Yeah. And that's to me what I've gotten out of Aikido, the art of peace, and try to bring to golf and to bring to the world more. And that we all prosper more. We do better.
I couldn't agree more. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you very much for joining me in the Coach's Corner panel. It's been a great discussion. And real quick, Clint, for those that do want to reach out to you, what's the best way they can reach you? And then Jamie.
Yeah, Ted, it's been wonderful. Jamie, it's been a good show. I should have just sit and listened, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's okay. ClintGolf001 at yahoo.com is the easiest way to get a hold of me. I'd be more than happy to respond back if anybody feels like they need to send me a note. Look forward to it.
I appreciate it. And Jamie, how is the best way that they can reach you?
They can go to my website, thecenteredway.com, centeredway.com. I think it pops up, sign up for my mailing list. People can certainly call me or text me. I do respond. I like to talk, obviously, and connect personally. So that's +1 760 492 4653. And my book, The Centered Way, will be coming out in the next few months. If you're interested in a copy or whatever, or in a clinic presentation, just write me through my website or send me a message, and I will definitely be back in touch.
Well, Jamie,
And
when it
thank you
gets
both. It's been great. Thank you.
yeah,
And
when
nice
it gets a
synergy.
little bit closer, I'll let you plug the book a little bit more on the show when it gets closer to its release date and that. But thank you again, always, for bringing your best to the Coach's Corner panel. All right, some incredible insights to start tonight's show. Stick around, guys. We'll be right back.